It's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's our goal. Hey, it's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's also a show.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Breaking Bread with Tom Papa. I am Tom Papa. Thank you so much for being here. A big show today with my good pal, Jim Gaffigan. How great is that? He is really the perfect guest, isn't he? He loves food. Wrote a whole book about his love of food. He is hilarious. He has a new special out on Netflix called Comedy Monster. And he's one of my dear friends. So, yeah, this is going to be a home run. You guys are going to love this conversation. I would like to start off by thanking the good people at Helix Sleep. Thank you, Helix Sleep, for coming on board. Take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a mattress that will give you the best sleep of your life. I know some of you are sleeping on some saggy old mattresses at night, and you deserve better. So give yourself an upgrade and find your perfect mattress at helixsleep.com/papa, P-A-P-A. And you will get up to $200 off all your mattress orders and 2 free pillows. I sleep on one, so you should too. It'll be like we're sleeping together. That's creepy. And we'd like to thank the good people from DoorDash for sponsoring today's program. You ever pull into the driveway after a trip to the grocery store and realize you forgot that one key ingredient? Now you have options. Get the groceries you need or a backup meal from your favorite local restaurant delivered with DoorDash. For a limited time, you can get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code PAPA, P-A-P-A. That's 25% off, up to a $10 value, and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code PAPA, subject to change, terms apply. So yeah, Jim has a new special that came out just recently. It's called Comedy Monster. He is just a super funny comedian, of course, but he's also super reliable. Every time a Gaffigan special comes out, you get excited because you know you're going to get more Jim, and more Jim means more funny. He's a great guy. We've started out back in the day in New York. It was Gaffigan. This was like in 93 was when we were young cubs running around. And I would do these shows, we would put together these different shows, and Gaffigan was around, Greg Giraldo was around, and I was around, and we would bounce around and do these different shows, and we were always in each other's orbit. And it's pretty crazy that after all of these years, we are still doing it and still pals. And it all came from those crazy not knowing what to do times. The very interesting thing, and I wouldn't say this in front of Jim because he'd probably be a little embarrassed, but he really is in my opinion, a true artist in the realm of stand-up comedy. And we would do those early shows, and he would do version, like a new finding it kind of version of his stand-up comedy today, where he would be on stage and he would do the little funny voices, and he'd break into, I don't know, what's he talking about? And in the beginning, when you're trying to find it in these audiences of like 5 or 6 people, a lot of times they'd be like, what is he doing? Who's this weird guy in between these other people who are just killing us with nonstop jokes and straight ahead stuff? And Jim had a style all to his own in the early days, and he kept to it. And that became his style, and it became mainstream. And he easily could have surrendered and just went at it and did what everybody else was doing, and he didn't. He stayed true to himself, and I think that's really the key to his success. So funny, so great. We have a great time, and I was very excited because now that we live on different coasts, today is a day I could actually give him my bread. This is going to be a good one. Enjoy Jim Gaffigan. Look, I even wrote on the bag Comedy Monster.
Oh my God. This is...
Now, I know you're on the road right now.
Yeah.
How long are you out on the road? You going home?
I'm leaving Friday.
Friday. All right, so you can bring this back and eat it.
I could eat it right now.
You can take a look at it. I don't recommend eating it just yet. I mean, you could peel off a piece if you wanted to. It just came out of the oven.
You know, it's like, why is bread, when it's warm, it is, it's like anything else, you're like, it's not hot, but bread when it's warm, oh, look at this.
Right?
This is beautiful.
That's just for you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was so happy to give it to you.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And then, because that's a big thing, and it really by tomorrow it's going to be really killer.
So it is kind of one of those things. It's like it ages.
Yes.
Oh God, I'm so ignorant. You'd think the appreciation I have for bread that I would know more, but I'm like bread.
Well, that's what was so great about your book. And then we got donuts just for fun for today, just if we're hanging out, because I know you love donuts. And you were so nice to come on my very short-lived Food Network show when we met at that donut place.
I remember
that was so fun. You just rolled in, and it was like, this is like Santa just showed up at the toy store. It was
so like how often do you treat yourself to donuts?
Not very often.
Not very often, right? Because
these are,
I mean, it's like there's nothing, there's no justifying a donut. I mean, I've had like, I remember I had donuts in like 2 specials, and I was like, I gotta stop with the donut material. But there is just like, I've dropped our car off and then there was a Dunkin' Donuts across the way, and I got donuts. It's like, you go home, you're a hero. You are a hero.
You really are.
Right? It's like, you might as well have like, I won the lottery. But when you have kids and you show up with donuts, they're like, this is the best dad ever.
I know. Yeah, it must be like in the olden times, like if you brought home like a giant elk or something.
It's none of these have sugar in them.
No,
right?
these are all. These are just, Winchell's is known for.
How do you? Because Tom,
pick?
You were a pudgy guy.
I am still pudgy.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. But you Christian Finnegan, Segura was a fat ass.
Segura was gross.
But he is a stud.
He's a stud. But
now I'm the fat ass. But I was working out 2 times a day. I didn't have kids.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that watching your special, which is hilarious.
Okay.
I can't believe that how consistent you are, but I will get to that. But as a chubby guy, like, because I'm always been, I could be, when you ask, like, do you eat donuts all the time? No. But if I ate the amount of donuts I want to eat, I would double in size in a week and a half.
Yeah.
In a week and a half.
Yeah.
So I'm always kind of like consider myself chubby because I was chubby for a bit as a kid, all that stuff. So anyway, I'm watching your special and I'm thinking, tucking the shirt in with a belt.
Which one was that?
Comedy Monster.
Yeah, that was a mistake. That was a mistake.
I was thinking, I always go untucked.
Yeah.
So maybe I can create the illusion that I don't have love handles.
By the way,
you looked good.
I looked good. Well, I lost weight.
You always look the same.
I lost weight during the pandemic. I lost like 25 pounds.
Whoa.
And then probably within a week, I gained it all back.
That's the most disheartening.
You go out to eat. You're touring. You go out to eat.
Once.
I mean, and they literally boil steaks in butter. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, you're like, wow, this is so much better than my steak. Yeah, because it's like cooked in butter. They literally spoon feed the cows butter as they're growing.
You got in my head because we were talking about how we eat on the road, and you said, I like a steakhouse. I like after the show steakhouse. And then I went out on the road. Omicron had hit, so I wasn't going to a steakhouse. But the only thing in my head from the moment I took my wheelie bag and left the house was, can I get a steak tonight?
Yeah.
But eating after the show is
a bad idea.
Such a bad idea. It's really deadly because you're going to be asleep within a half hour after you put the last giant piece of beef and onion ring in your face.
Yeah, or just a loaf of bread. But it's like, what else are you going to do? How do you come down?
I don't get the come down part.
You don't?
No. I often say if there was a mattress on the side of the stage and I said goodnight, I could lay down on that mattress and be asleep before people get up to leave.
Wow.
Yeah. Maybe you're just playing bigger places.
No, I think it's... Well, for me, I'm such a low energy guy that I have to drum up this energy.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is the excitement of the show, the feedback and all that.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I'm like, I don't want to go out partying.
Right.
And so I'm like, a restaurant, that's human.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's also...
It's a great idea. It's a great joy.
Yeah.
You deserve it. You're hungry.
Now, what do you do? Like, all right, so where were you?
So I was in Austin and Tucson, and both nights I didn't have an opener for either show because of Omicron. I was just like, I just went out and did an hour and a half by myself.
Oh, that's
I was totally alone. So I went and did the shows and then said goodnight, didn't do any book signings or anything, just went back to the hotel room, got a little snack, like something nuts or whatever, and just went back and sat in the hotel. And it sounds kind of sad and small.
Oh, it does.
But it was so joyous at the same time.
Well, there is...
Because, you're with your family all the time.
Yeah. There is something about that decompression that is so valuable that, like, my wife never gets. But it's that, that downtime is pretty important.
Like
There's
just
something
sitting
about
alone?
Yeah, that battery, you have to sit back and watch. It's so weird to watch TV with commercials. You're like, look at me watching commercials like a loser.
Or just picking what the TV says is on.
Yeah. You can't find, like there's no guide, it's like also just the whole notion of like people don't realize how hard we have it. We have to figure out how different showers work. Like you're like, what is this knob? Is this knob? Oh my gosh, I burned my arm.
Oh, more red should be more hot.
Right? It's just like, and then you're like, oh, is this hotter or this is, and then you've been making it colder and you're like, all right, now it's off.
Right.
There's different knobs and it's like the shower. What about the water that comes out of the wall? Do we need that? Like, are people like, you know what? Water coming out your wall, hitting you in the belly.
I love you've done a big show and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. Everybody was loving you. And then you get back and you turn the shower on and that one with the hose attached is twisted right at your face. So like, all right, big shot.
It's brutal.
There you go.
But so you did Austin and Tucson.
Yeah.
Obviously would have made more sense to do Austin and another Texas city.
Yeah.
There's big cities in Texas, one of which is Dallas and Houston, or you could have gone to Oklahoma, but you're like, you know what, let's go all the way over.
Where I have to connect in Dallas to get there.
No.
Yeah. So the whole day is just travel and, dumb. It was dumb.
I feel like airports is where... I feel like not so much the planes, but airports, you're just like, I'm getting that here. I'm getting COVID here. I'm getting it twice.
I know.
Right?
I know. I feel like my red alert is any bar or restaurant with a bar in it on the road.
Right.
Like that, if I go in there, I'm hungry, but if I go in there, I'm definitely getting a bunch of things.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just, I kind of danced around it. Did you catch it?
I actually, when I did Rogan's thing, I had a negative test, and then someone in his empire was getting an antibody test, and they're like, "Do you want an antibody test?" I'm like, "Sure." And so it said I had it. I don't know. They could have told me anything. They could have been like, "You're French." And I'm like, "Really? Okay." I really don't know.
Right. It's at Rogan.
But
He wants to have the top science.
No, he has his own nurse.
I know.
He has his own nurse.
Yeah, you go in, you get tested.
It's amazing.
And he gets tested every day too.
Yeah.
Think about how many podcasts he does in a week. Like, he's had more tests than anyone.
It's just so unbelievable.
But it said you had the.
It said
COVID
I had it at one point.
Oh, at one point. So you have antibodies.
Yes. So and I think the antibodies, you have them for 6 months. I don't know. We should know by now. It's like COVID is kind of like a wine menu. Like, given how much I've been around it, I should know a little. Like, I should have picked up something. Like, but I'm still at like. There's red and there's white and there's a rosé. That's all I know, right? And champagne is like if you want a headache in an hour.
Just someone tell me what to do.
Yeah,
someone just tell me what I'm supposed to do and get this book out of my hands. I do feel my optimistic part of me, because New York is starting to come down.
Yeah,
New Jersey's starting to come down. This seems like the South Africa model. It seems like between the vaccine and everybody getting it, I feel like this is kind of the end of it. I feel like Omicron was the Friday the 13th where you killed the bad guy and then they pop out of the tub one last time.
Well, that's what's so funny. It's like Omicron. My thing was that Omicron is like a Dateline episode. It's like they're like, there's this thing coming, and you're like, what? And they're like, it's called Omicron. And you're like, what is it? And they're like, after this commercial break. And you're like, what? And then they're like, there's this thing coming, Omicron. We don't know. It's from South Africa. And you're like, what else? We'll tell you later. And you're like, just tell me what it is. And they're like, it could be nothing, or it could be unbelievable. And you're like, what is it? They're like, when we come back. Right?
Yeah.
And we still don't know. They're like, it either is going to make everyone have it and we're all going to be happy.
Yeah.
Or it's just soften us up so that we're all going to die.
Right, exactly.
It's either one of those, but possibly neither.
How much of you right now is thinking that donut was really good and went really fast? It's almost like I didn't have it.
Right.
I could just have another donut.
Yeah, I mean, I could, if I was alone in my room, I would be down to one or two, and I'd be like, well, there's only one or two left. So.
What I love of watching your Instagram when you're on the road is, you wrote a great book on food. Everyone knows from your acts how much you love food. You love food.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But not everybody, but it really takes at this point someone to really, really shower you with something great. And then you post it up on Instagram. So I know whenever there's a food thing, it's like, I should be writing this down because this in Wisconsin is more special than anything.
Yeah. No, there is. It's fun to. You must get food all the time. Right?
The scary part about mine is because I bake. Is a lot of home baked things.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a little iffy, right?
It's a little iffy, and I tell everyone that I don't eat it, but I do.
Right. And so you go back to your hotel room with. You ever get like a gift basket? And you're like, all right, I'm going to bring this back. My kids love this stuff. And then I'm like, it's not going to fit my bag.
Right.
So I'm like,
Yeah. The one great thing that you hooked me up with was the Kringle.
Oh, yeah, the Kringle.
The Kringle.
That's a special thing,
That
right?
is a special thing.
And I
don't know if I got it this year, actually, now that I think of it.
I did shows in November. It's Kringle.com. Like, if we talk about it now they'll send us Kringles.
They're so good.
So, but
I never even knew what they were until they showed up.
I didn't either. My wife was, she had a pregnancy craving. I don't know which pregnancy it was, but she was like, I need a Kringle. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. and then I realized it was the thing, like Wisconsin, they just, you wake up, you have a Kringle, you eat cheese all day. There's just a cheese tray.
Right.
I think in Italy it's like that. There's cheese.
Yeah.
Just out.
It's just not cheddar.
Yeah.
Wisconsin's all bright orange cheese.
Oh, but it's just amazing.
It really is. I had a run where I was staying in the state and did a couple.
Yeah.
And it was like late fall. It was the leaves were all changing, and it just seemed like they had set the tour up with, you go to this bakery and then you stop at that bakery and then you'll be at the show. And then the next day you go to this little home place.
Well, because you are so I'm impressed that you've held the weight off, because I know that when I did my book about food,
Yeah.
you get in that mindset thinking about food, and mine
the
was
time.
also like trying local specialties, and there's so many specialties that are not in my book, but like and then people are like, you gotta go here, and you're like, oh, I gotta go here, and then you just end up like eating all the time. Like,
I know.
it's not just people giving you food, it's like your subconscious is always like, oh, there's an amazing bakery in Albany, New York, maybe I should go there. And you're like,
I know,
you don't need to go there.
It's really true.
But because you're in the bakery thing.
Yeah, you're thinking about it all the time. I know. That guy who did Man vs. Food, remember that
Yeah.
show?
The first guy, because I think
The first guy.
yeah,
The first guy.
he just bailed. He's like, I'm gonna die.
He would have a physician on the road with him. And they would take like his blood pressure all the time, and yeah, it was like a big health concern. Like it was going to kill. Food was winning.
Yeah, because he was. Yeah, that was interesting. There would be like, that's one of those things that seems like would in the future it would be like, how irresponsible for a network to allow that.
Right.
Right now we're like, who cares? A fat guy dies. But
Who's the next host?
but I think he quit.
He did quit.
And then there was another guy,
yeah.
and
Who looks a little like you, I think.
he does.
Yeah, I think he looked
He's
a little
good looking, huh?
Yeah, he was very handsome.
By the way, people
McConaughey-esque.
People think that I look like you.
For real?
I've seen that on, maybe because we're both,
Glasses
glasses, and we don't say fuck
or have hair.
or have hair, or we're friends with crazy people.
I was watching a comedian the other day, a well-known comedian,
Yeah.
and he's successful, and he was telling a joke that was pretty, just regular material about whatever, but he dropped F-bombs pretty much every fifth word.
Yeah.
The effect that has on the act. So he's seen as an edgy guy.
Right.
But the joke was literally like, sprinkles on donuts are crazy, right? But putting the F-bomb in every other thing, he's not us. He's
Right.
edgy. He's like, if we're a teenager, if I was a teenage kid, I'd be like, oh, this guy's pretty cool.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. It's and that goes along with the authenticity thing.
Mm-hmm.
It probably appears authentic for him, right?
Yeah, it does.
Whereas if
It does.
we did it, it's like
Yeah.
it's like me and like I did a show in Milwaukee, and they gave me a Harley Davidson jacket, and I'm like, I can't wear this. You know what I mean? Like if I wore it, people would be like, no, just take that off. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's an authenticity thing. You know what I mean? Like,
What are you doing?
I have material about motorcycles that I know nothing about them, but like, people don't even need to guess.
Right.
They're like, no, he doesn't. I wouldn't, like, if there's a disaster, we need someone to ride a motorcycle. People are like, well, obviously not Jim Gaffigan. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Does that
Yeah.
3-year-old, how's the balance on the 3-year-old? And so, but it's
Yeah.
the authenticity thing.
It
But
is.
I don't know if I talked about this with you and Fortune, but the whole thing of, I think that, and this is totally, there's other issues, but I think that for clean comics, there is a big disadvantage because we will never get the attribute or the adjective edgy. And I think that like that is it's what everyone wants. You want a little edge.
Right.
But my theory is that like Seinfeld, point of view, like it should be point of view.
Right.
But edge is kind of a lazy thing. It's kind of like the equivalent of like saying to a teenage boy, there's going to be a woman in a tight sweater. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No. It's true because you could be talking about.
I don't want the baker to feel bad.
You could be talking about the same things, but if you aren't, sometimes I'll get reviews that say something like he's clean, or he talks about family, but letting the reader know, this material is like pretty provocative, where this is like, it does have some edge to it. Like, you're right. Like the first half of it, if you say that, then everybody just thinks, well, it must be just vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
But it really has, when you see Brian Regan ranting about something, he's angry.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
He's just doing it in Brian's way.
Right. And if
It's
Brian,
like, you don't want to see, I don't know if I want to see Brian angry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel bad.
Yeah. No, in the same way, like you can't wear the Harley Davidson jacket. I remember early on at the Comedy Cellar going on After a Tell when I first got down there, and I was like, well, I've got to lean against the wall and curse.
Yeah.
The audience, who didn't know me from Adam, was like, what are you doing? Like, you could feel them be like, that's not you. You know what I mean?
Right,
and I
right.
don't curse really all day long, so why would I get on stage and start doing it?
Yeah, it is so interesting.
Yeah.
But that's my.
But I wonder if it's a calculated thing with some acts. Like, they know that by filling the act with that, you are talking to a different audience. You're expanding the audience.
That's insane.
Which one? That chocolate one?
Yeah,
that
I don't
looks
know
too insane.
I don't know what they're doing.
It is. That looks like that looks like they dipped it 3 times in chocolate.
It's all kinds of amazing.
All right, I'll taste it.
Yeah.
Do you ever do that
now we
when
just
you're
go
home?
into a sugar coma. Like the last half of the episode, it's just like.
All right, you've got back-to-back meetings. You have errands to run and chores to take care of. What's the secret to clearing your to-do list? A little help from DoorDash. You get dinner, household essentials, and everything on your grocery list delivered to you. The pandemic started me off using services to try and get things delivered to my home, and it really changed my entire thinking. Because by the time I get home and you're walking the dogs and you're seeing your kids and you've got all your work to do, what is wrong with having a little help, especially from a good company like DoorDash, who can run to the store, get the stuff that you need, and bring it back to you, or just get you the entire meal and bring it to you? They're really a great company. You get what you want to eat right now and right to your door with DoorDash. Along with the restaurants you love, you can now get groceries and other essential items delivered with DoorDash. Get drinks, snacks, other household items in under an hour. Craving late night ice cream, donuts, maybe Tom's bread? Maybe you just need to stock up for the week. With DoorDash, you get everything with one easy-to-use app. There are over 300,000 partners. You can support your neighborhood go-tos or choose from a favorite national restaurants like Popeyes, Chipotle, and the Cheesecake Factory. Ordering's easy, and your items will be left safely outside your door when you choose contactless delivery drop-off. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code PAPA. That's 25% off up to a $10 value and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter the code PAPA, P-A-P-A, for 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Subject to change. Terms apply. Good company, solid. You need a partner. You need your stuff. There you go. You've got it all down. And then when you get all tired and it's time to go to sleep at night, who do we call on? Our good friends at Helix Sleep. Helix Sleep. Now, I had an old mattress. It was big and it was lumpy, and it wasn't really a great thing to sleep on. And then we kept saying, should we get a new mattress? And that went on probably for 5 years. It's just one of those things you should do, but for some reason you don't pull the trigger. It's such a dumb thing. Sleep is so important. You really need good sleep, and there's so many reasons to not get good sleep, especially in the last 2 years. Enough worries and eating wrong or drinking too much or whatever you have. There's a lot of things fighting against good sleep. It shouldn't be your mattress. Helix Sleep has a quiz that takes just 2 minutes to complete and matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. We took this. My wife and I had 2 different needs. We had 2 different results, and they gave us a mattress that satisfied both of us. They have soft, medium, and firm mattresses. Mattress is great for cooling you down if you sleep hot, and even a Helix Plus mattress for plus size folks. I took the Helix quiz, and I was matched, and my wife and I are sleeping well. The mattress comes right to your door, shipped for free. You don't need to go to the mattress store ever again. Voted the #1 best overall mattress pick of 2020 by GQ and Wired magazine. There's a 10-year warranty, and you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it. You cannot lose. Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/papa. helixsleep.com/papa, P-A-P-A. Back to Jim. You ever do it at home when there's donuts around and you just eat one donut like over an hour, just taking two little pieces? That's another good dad move. Go to do the regular shopping and get like just the Entenmann's chocolate donut box and just drop it on the counter. Who did this? My wife comes in. Who did this? You know I'm going to be the one eating all of it.
Oh my God, that's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just all sugar, right? We're just responding to sugar.
And love.
And
you ever think of just going for it and going to like John Panette size? He was so funny.
Yeah, so funny.
God, I saw him recently. They were playing all these comics, and I never really get to sit and watch. And there was a bunch of comics from that era, and he was the funniest of all of them. He was so much better written than I remember.
Really?
Yeah, he was so colorful with his language and really painting a picture. And then he had the act behind it of his just.
Well, he also the theatrics. He could sing.
Yeah.
The voices.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wow, he was a special guy. I mean, he was like, I remember one time for his birthday, I middled for him, and it was his birthday, and he was like, "Come on, let's go to a strip club." And I'm like, "Really? Okay." And he gave me like I think $50 for the strip club, and I'm like, "What a great guy!" This is such a weird story. Like, and then we murdered a stripper. And I was like, "What a great guy!"
What a great guy!
Oh, but here's what I was going to tell you that I think is so funny. It's like when you talk about the clean thing is. So I've been doing press for Comedy Monster, and what is really interesting is Comedy Monster. Really, like the past. I have a joke in my new hour that I'm touring with now about how he ran out of food, meaning me, 3 specials ago. Like I didn't really talk about food in this special.
No,
but in interviews, people have been like, it was so great, the food material in Comedy Monster. And I'm like, and I don't want to be a dick and be like, there wasn't any. But like, I'm so associated with it.
Yeah.
They just assume where the.
Well, you talk about being chubby in it. So.
Yeah, and then there's the cat calling other people's food in a restaurant. But.
Right. Yeah. But you think that's a process of them wanting to, like, you're known for that? Like they want you to talk about it?
I think it's similar to the clean thing in that, because what I thought you were going to say is that no matter what we talk about, we're known as the clean guys, that it's always clean, like it's very safe. But like, I know in one special I talked about cancer.
Right.
And, it was like maybe 5 minutes on it. And it was, because it affects everyone, right? But like, there was still like people like, yeah, clean comedy. And I'm like, really? That's clean comedy? Talking about how we're all going to die of cancer?
Right.
How like, when you hear about this is before COVID. Now everyone's grandpa dies from COVID.
Yeah, but even like in Comedy Monster, there was one joke, I forgive me because I forget what it was, but at the end you're like, and then we murdered her, or something like right.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, and it was like that's it doesn't get darker than that.
But I think it's the whole package, right? It's because I look like, I used to have a joke about looking like John Tesh. Now people don't even know who John Tesh is. But because we look a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think because people know that we are not the type that are out there murdering hookers. Not that other comics are. But I don't know. It's weird. I'm sure it's an advantage.
Don't you feel, though,
ways.
that it's kind of lost its... it's not so much a talking point as it was earlier?
I think it's definitely diminished. But it's still... It's like, I think people are lazy.
Yeah.
And it's... You know, I'm also grateful when I get press. So it's like if they're gonna say something,
right?
And you know, when we first started, there weren't many articles, and still when we tour, people, will like it'll be like, here's the act, and then they just list your jokes. You're like, could you not do that?
Right? Yeah.
They're like, that's the article. It's just listing your jokes.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, that's not an article, but
right, exactly.
But. So, I think it's shifting a little bit, but I think that, I mean, we are a culture where we like new, right? We always like new stuff, and so...
Yeah. I do honestly feel pretty good when I'll be signing books at the end or whatever, and a whole family will come up.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like the parents and the 13-year-old kid and his 14-year-old sister, and they all just had a great time, and they're like,
oh yeah,
I do feel really good about that. Because it's hard to write that stuff and be funny, so that all those people are into you and wanting to show up. Like, you know, I allow myself to pat myself on the back at that moment, like that. This shows that it kind of pays off.
Yeah, I mean, there is part of me that feels like. It is, I believe comedians kind of do what they do. So we're going to do the style of comedy that we're going to do.
Sure.
And we're going to get the criticism or the credit. But I know as a parent, you know, when you finally have, I mean, I've got, I don't know how many kids at this point. Well,
I think it's 12.
No, but there is like, you know, finding a family movie, you go through them. You're like, or you know, because I have 9 and 10-year-olds, and I also have a 17-year-old. So now I'm like, all right, we can watch Dune. Everyone in on Dune.
Yeah.
So like to your point, there is something where I also really appreciate it, because there is stuff that you want to watch and you want everyone to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also like it when I'm at a show and there is the teenage kid and then maybe an uncle. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Right, exactly.
Because they obviously have varying opinions.
Yeah, right, exactly. And, you know, if you're talking about stuff that comes from a family, everybody's been in a family at every aspect of it. Yeah. So it's not like you're just talking to parents.
Right.
Let me talk, because this is the only, you know, we're pals and stuff, but you never get to really ask these questions when we're just hanging out. But you are so prolific, and you are, I mean, you crank out.
But you're prolific too.
Yeah, but this is about you.
Right.
And
but it's also about me.
But
how do we do it?
But I feel like you have you gave me advice to start getting into writing books, and I really do enjoy it.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of time. Like there's a, you know, both your books are joke heavy. There's not a paragraph that goes without a laugh. I mean, there's very few. But now that you've kind of been spit out of that, and you've got the you know, you act and stuff, but you got the show out of your system. Yeah. You went through that. Do you feel like you're in a place where you can just focus on the act and then all your writing gets poured into that.
It's so interesting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is like, because obviously the task of writing a book, which is essays, right? It's not like, a novel.
Yeah.
But, and it is managing your time, right?
100%.
But I do feel as though it shifts so much, because having done a show, and I'm saying this because you've gone through this, or having written a book and be like, I'm going to do another one. There is something, and there are certain skills that you bring to those things, and also certain things that you acquire from those that you bring into your act.
Yeah.
That I feel as though like writing stand-up and how I write it's changed so much. I don't know about you. It's like, I remember waking my wife up to like, come on, we got to come up with more bacon jokes. And now it's when I'm doing a couple nights in a row, that's when I feel like I'm writing the most, is because I'll do a set, I'll kind of think about it, and then it's some of it's writing, but it's a lot of it's on stage. Kind of, I talk with Ted Alexandro a lot,
Right.
and then, but like that's also the coming up with the stand-up is pretty rewarding. So like, I love acting, and so like the forced hiatus, because I think that stand-ups need a forced. You can't solely do stand-up.
Right.
So whether it's a podcast, whether it's writing a book, I think it's healthier for your act to have other outlets.
Yeah.
But
while I'm doing those other things, a lot of times I'm thinking, imagine if I could just take all of this and put it all towards the act.
yeah, but well, it's also weird because it's like the it's stand-up is so self-assignment, right? But I mean, this is me being a total comedy nerd. But like, I think that I have this theory that there's there's a theory on how long people want a show to be. I don't know in the podcast world how long it's supposed to be, but my gut is that people want to see an hour and 15, maybe an hour and a half of a show.
Right.
That's my opinion. There are comics that have like 3 openers and then they do 2 hours. To me, that seems insane.
Yeah. I start feeling bad about everybody that has a life and has to go back home.
And so, but like, I feel like then there's like, how often do they want new stuff from you? So we know when we go to Austin or Tucson, that there's an unspoken agreement, you're going to come with new material. But do they want a special, what kind of frequency? So we know in like the British culture, it's a new hour every year, which is a little bit, I don't think America wants that. And I think it's also determined by style.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be packed with as many jokes as we have, an hour every year is, you can get to the hour, you can get to 60 minutes, but is it the packed 60 minutes that you want to share with people?
And there's also, it's like baking or growing something. You have to let it, like, it's so weird because like we write these chunks, we put them away, and then there'll be this new infusion of an idea 6 weeks later that will shrink it or expand it. And so there is something about, and that's always shifting about how often and when they want to see it. Like, I think that topical, political can be every year. I think that super outrage has to be like once every 3 years.
Oh yeah,
So
and
like
even then you're done after 2.
Super caustic. Super caustic. It is, and we have friends that are really good at this. And I'm not making this rule. I'm just saying this is my impression.
Because you watch people who have that real anger thing, and then they run out of the anger thing, and it's like,
it's
you can't be as mad about crayons as you were about the government in your first one.
yeah, and or like I think it's special doses of it too.
Yeah,
right. But I don't know. I mean, I think that like for Seinfeld gets so mad when I use these terms. For observational guys like you and I, I kind of feel that the material tends to be evergreen, right?
Yeah.
I feel as though it could be every year or every year and a half. I don't know.
Well, you've been on an every year schedule
with
pretty
COVID.
much, right?
Yeah, but it's weird because there is like Comedy Monster. A lot of people are like, "Oh, this one's so much better than the last couple," and I'm like, "Well, the last one was like I was doing a special about Canada." I was doing a special about Spain. It was a weird project.
Right.
But I do hear like, and so some of the material really could bake, which is pretty important, right?
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. But go back to when you're freed up.
Oh yeah, when you're freed up.
Focusing purely
When
on the
you're
act.
freed up.
Is that a fantasy? Is it a fantasy that, now I'm just...
Well, remember when we had day jobs and you're like, what? If I didn't have a day job, I would wake up and I'd start writing.
Right, exactly.
And
then you have the freedom and you don't.
It's so weird because also there's the balancing act of you need to live your life so you have material.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't perform because for me, like when... the first year and a half of this pandemic, I mean, I did a couple of drive-in shows, but I didn't really write. I mean, I did the CBS Sunday commentaries.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like, I do think that writing other things, to answer your question, is important. It keeps the machine oiled.
Right. Yeah.
But it's weird. I mean, I love acting and I'll work on, sometimes it's usually a week, sometimes it's 3 weeks. I worked on a movie where it was 4 months, but
yeah,
I almost feel like those forced hiatuses are good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I do. I always come back to, I really do have this suspicion that it's a fantasy. Like if you could just throw everything else out, you don't have to do anything else, and you could just pour all into the act. I think it would be minimal how much faster the act grows than the way we're doing it as busybodies.
Yeah, and I think there is something about because there's people that can. I mean, I think Dane Cook did like 2 specials. Louie's done 2 specials in a year. There are people that can do it. It's also, I think, again, people that are talking about politics or topical stuff or tabloid stuff. I think the topics are delivered to you, but like when you're talking autobiographically and observational, it's pretty hard to harvest that stuff.
Yeah.
And you also go through it like you're like, I've talked about my family. I certainly don't want to, like I even feel like in Comedy Monster, I'm like, I was a little bit complaining about my wife. Like I don't want to do that. I don't want to go that far.
Right.
Like you want to be this, and I see it in your comedy. You want to be the cynical people we are, but you also don't want to be this cliche of like, this bag.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
When the reality is they're probably looking at us like this dick. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I know. As much as you can couch it with, we've been in this for 22 years. Everything's great. I love this thing. And then you complain about something that you do together. It's like, you don't want to.
Because it's just like any other joke. You don't want to hear the wrong laugh. You don't want to be like, no, that's not what I'm not saying that.
Right, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's weird how people don't realize that you have to rewrite stuff. You're like, no, my point is, I'm not doing an 8th grade homophobic thing. That's not the point I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Even though people are like, right. And you're like, no, that's, I'm going to rewrite that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any stuff from early on that went out into a special that you would have rewritten I mean, not just from.
Yeah, I mean, it's so.
We weren't really giving it to people even at that time, but
no. I mean, there's stuff that I've done that it's so weird. We, during the pandemic, we did this thing called Dinner with the Gaffigans, which started as this.
The
we
YouTube
had
thing?
friends that were at home, and we were like, you know what, we'll just do dinner, and we'll see if they can watch. And then it turned into this fundraising thing, and then it was kind of like, oh, this is good for our kids to like. We're eating dinner, but we're talking about helping people, and that kind of, looking back, we did it too long. It was like, there was a lot of benefit, but like in some ways it's like you don't want to put your kids in that position. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, having like a production schedule or having to be on camera.
We were just having dinner, and like it's just a lot to ask, but like I think that it was well intended, but like that's one of those things where, and like I'm sure there's probably going to be people that are like, I love Dinner with the Gafigans, and yeah, it was good, and it was kind of good to keep us in the chaos of the pandemic. We're going to have dinner at 6 p.m. Eastern every night, and we're going to do it live, and we're going to talk about like, the conversations you would have, but it's a little bit too exhibitionisty for me.
Right? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's
no, 100%.
So it's just not in my thing.
Does Jeannie get uncomfortable if you put the kids forward on stuff? Cynthia's always saying like off limits. Yeah.
I mean, it's so strange because there is this balance of, you can talk about, I mean, I would never specify unless they're okay with it. Like at the end of Comedy Monster, there's a bit about my son Michael and Halloween. And I asked, I mean, he's 10, but I also know that like he's not going to be, I can't believe you told that story. You know what I mean? But it's a slippery slope because there is almost kind of along the thing where, and I have friends, these same people where they'll put like a peach over the kid's face, and you're like, all right, that's fine because that's their boundary, right? But like there is part of me that's like, some of these friends, I'm like, yeah, all right, I understand you being protective, but like you do discuss eating ass in your stand-up. You know what I mean? So like,
right.
Everyone's
making it up.
We're all making it up as we go along. But
yeah, that's a very good point.
It's so weird. Like the concept that we're even parents is insane. Yeah.
Well, it seems like, I guess because we've just been doing it long enough, where it seems like there's more. It seemed like when we started having families, there were very few. Nobody was of our peers were.
Yeah. And it's like,
but I think in the long run, Cynthia asked me that actually. She was like, do you think it would have been much different if you hadn't had a family, if like your stand-up or whatever? And I was like, yeah, it would have been worse.
Oh yeah,
I would have been worse. I mean, some people are okay as like a single unit. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I would. Who knows what I would have been talking about? Who knows what I would have been spending my time on in between shows? You know what I mean? Like it gave me structure, and it gave me like perspective on the world. And I mean, it's everything. I don't understand. I really think I would have been worse off.
That was good. Now let's try it one more time. Make it more believable.
I felt.
Maybe a little.
I think it was my
donut.
Your eye. It was my donut.
No, it is.
One time,
I love my daughters. No.
One time, the first time I did the Tonight Show, I did with Leno, and I came off to the side and sat next to him, and he was like, "That was really funny." He goes, and we're talking a little bit, and he goes, "You got kids?" And I was like, yeah, I got a kid and another one on the way. He was like, oh. And he looked away. He was just like, oh, too bad. I thought you were going to be a success.
Oh, no.
It was that kind of a feel.
Well, that's how you kind of interpreted it. But I
Yes.
remember.
It was like, or maybe he just didn't have anything to talk about. But I definitely got the feeling it was, that's too bad.
When I hear that, and I would interpret it as he didn't go down that path.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, I wasn't there.
And he's the host of The Tonight Show.
And he is, well, it's like, I think, the ambition thing is such a strange monster, right? But like, there's also the whole thing of like, I remember when I was at the Comedy Cellar, so it was like 25 years ago, and Ray Romano was like, this is before he got a show, before he really broke through.
Yeah.
And he was the married guy with kids. And I remember thinking, that poor guy. That poor guy is married with kids. He's trapped. Like, I literally would think, like, that poor guy, he lives in Queens. He has a car.
He's going home after this.
He drives home. I'm right. And he was like one of the best comedic minds. And I'm like, that's such a loss.
It's so true.
And it was just like, and so like, but like the ambition thing is that, was there a moment during your career where you were like, I describe it, there's always these moments where I call it kind of the Wizard of Oz moment where you look behind the curtain, you're like, oh, this is it? And this is not a criticism of Just for Laughs, but I remember the first time I went to Just for Laughs.
Yeah.
Because I ended up doing Letterman, and I didn't do New Faces, I don't think, until I did it. I ended
Came
up
in after, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but it was something I always wanted to go to Montreal, and I got to Montreal, and I'm like, oh, this is just. It's just a bunch of comedians. Like, I imagine there was like, sign here and get you a bag of money, and then there's a conveyor belt. Tom Cruise is in that room, and there are so many of these moments. Like, I remember when I did Letterman, and my brother flew in, and I had a friend who had put me in a commercial, and I was like, this is great, and it was a big night for me and everything. But like, there was part of me that was like, well, what do I do now? Because that was my only goal.
Right.
Was to do Letterman.
Yeah.
So crazy.
I know.
And then you're like, oh, all right.
Right. I heard something, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it was something about that wisdom is knowing what not to worry about.
Oh, wow.
And I really am feeling that now, because when you're younger and running, equal energy in every part of what you have to do, the writing, the touring, the getting to the thing, the talking to the interviews, and now you're like, all right, I know I'm going to keep it all quiet until it's time to do the run through for the show, and then go out and do the thing. And that's where, and then the editing after the show is going to be the thing that is going to be really important. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when you would watch Michael Jordan, not to compare us to Michael Jordan, but when you would watch somebody who had experience in the game, and you're like, why isn't he running back on defense? He's like, he's pacing himself. He knows where he's valuable. He knows when he has to hit. He knows how to spend his energy. And I feel like that's the big difference from now. Like, all those moments that you're saying, like, that were like, you kind of like punctured the balloon. You also were learning, like, oh, that's perspective. It's not that big and weighty.
Yeah.
You know?
It is just, it's amazing how, I guess I am generally a naive person, but like, I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking?
With what?
Like, I had this opportunity. So I did Letterman. I got a development deal. And then the show, Welcome to New York.
Right.
And the executive producer guy was like, hey, they want to take all credit for the concept you came up with. And I was like, yeah, that's all right. I don't care.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to be on. I'm just grateful to have a show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And then they're like, they don't want you in the writer's room. I'm like, well, that's all right. I'll be busy acting. But can I give ideas? They're like, they're definitely open to your ideas. They never took a single idea.
Right.
And it was just one of those things. And I know you had different experiences with your shows.
Yeah, but
like,
similar.
But you're like, wow. Like, it's just so strange how, like, people don't realize these comedians, these people that if you say don't say turd, they'll go out there and say turd, are also the same people that have been eating so much shit that from comedy managers, comedy clubs, and all the comedy club managers, that if you were to take away all their toys, they'd be like, okay, that's all right. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
It's a very strange thing.
They're a little
like there's this rugged individual.
Yeah.
But then they're like, oh, I don't get paid? That seems to make sense. Do you know what I mean? It's so, like, how is the same person who has the gumption to go on stage doesn't have the gumption to say, no, that was my idea?
Well, you think it comes from the vulnerability that we have just in the pureness of what we do. Like, I remember I did like, as a comedian, you're always filled with self-doubt. You always, if it's confident, you're standing in a room with 800
There's
people.
no guarantee it's going to work.
There's no guarantee it's going to work. And you pull it off and it goes great.
Yeah.
And you still, when you get back to your room, are like,
yeah.
Was it, how was it?
How do I make it better?
I came off, I did you've done this, the Michael J. Fox foundation thing that he does in New York every year. And I think we were there at the same time, actually.
Yeah.
And I went up on stage and I did my thing and it went really well. Yeah. And I came off and I was like, and Katie Couric was on the side because she was hosting or doing something. And she was like, that was great. And I was like, was it? And she hit me. She like slapped me and goes, you comedians are all the same.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. But there is,
so interesting.
And I think that to your point, I think it's not only the abuse of all the managers and stuff. I think it's purely, it's an insane thing that we're doing.
It is an insane thing. But also I would say at events like that, which that's an amazing event, is that you're also performing for people that spend $200,000 for a table. Mm-hmm. And so they're not like, it's not like your Tucson audience.
Right.
And it's not a comedy club audience.
Yeah.
Where it's
Some people don't even like comedy.
Some people are there and they're, it's not ideal for stand-up. So you're not going to hear the same laughs. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that, like, hearing is I did a show, where was it? I did the Melrose Improv last night. Uh-huh. It's just it was like a different, because it wasn't full capacity.
Right.
It's like, oh no, you know what it was? Uh-huh. It was, I did Kimmel. Uh-huh. And late night shows, they're usually, you can tell, you're like, well, that didn't work, but that worked. Mm-hmm. That didn't work. It was all like, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work, because hearing the sound.
Right.
But, the weird thing is, like, I also have a theory that all, comedians, it's like, Katie Couric, who is so nice and all this stuff. Yeah. She doesn't understand that every single conversation everyone's had in the entertainment industry, because she's a journalist, is a lie. So every time, like, we're buddies, we've been buddies forever, but like most people that you meet and they say, I'm a fan, in your head you're like, probably not. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't, and there's a difference between that being low self-esteem and that just being the experience. Like, I remember there was a time when I realized, because people in the entertainment industry are so responsive to, I really love your stuff. Like, who did I say it to? I do it too. Uh-huh. And they light up like to compliments, right? That that's just like a necessary thing. Like if I met someone, now I know
Yeah.
to say that, but before I would be like, hey, how you doing, Ben Affleck? Like, I wouldn't know to be like, really loved this and that, and that's not to say that he needs it, but I'm just saying he's been getting that for 25 years.
Yeah.
So if that's absent, he would think this guy doesn't think I'm
right.
It's like he's like, I directed a movie that won an Academy Award, mother. You know what I mean? So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. We're very sensitive creatures.
Yes.
So, Ben is, even though, and this is the thing, like, I haven't met anybody who, I see it on social media sometimes, and I'm like, God, do they really believe that? Like when they have like a slow motion camera following them out to the stage, and they're like, getting on the jet, and there's like, it's just nothing but pure ego and confidence. And I think there are a couple of those that are that way. But from acting and being around like huge stars and stuff, most people are still like, am I any good?
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. I think that's what makes you work harder, that makes you keep searching. I think people are surprised that there's self-doubt, because you are the guy standing up there in this theater and doing this thing. It seems like, well, he's confident. But in your quiet moments, it's like, if you didn't have any doubt, you wouldn't try and write a better joke.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge thing.
Do you think the guys on Instagram do you think they really believe it? The guys who have like the huge...
I don't know. I think that's a cultural thing. I think that is a status thing. It's kind of like the people that have hubcaps with diamonds on it. It's like, you're like, I look at them like, that's insane. Right. And they're like, did it. And you're like, good for you, buddy. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like,
it's so funny. Yeah, like you see someone with like a giant watch for $200,000.
Got this watch,
hey.
8,000. But I think that's, and when I say cultural, I mean like their family culture. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, every person of this nationality. I mean, like, kind of.
No, the greed culture. It's kind of the greed culture. It's the American making it culture.
Yes, it's like there's like I remember there was a story that like, it used to be pretty standard that some performers, famous singers, would only want to arrive in a limousine wherever they went.
Right.
Which I'm like, I would hate that.
I would hate that.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just like, every now and then you'll do a show in like Reno and they'll sit in a limbo and you're like, what's going on?
Right.
Are we time traveling here?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, but I don't know. There's also people that, I think it's interesting, the people that travel in packs.
Yes.
Like, all right, so you did Austin, and so you didn't have an opener, Omicron stuff, but it was just you.
And just me.
It was just you.
See, that's me.
The weird.
It was a little weird. I literally had a bit, I was like, I don't know if this is wise. Like, I was like, should I bring Joey with me just to have someone to walk in case something happens? Like, you know what I mean? Like, like that.
Well,
but back to the pack part of it too is, I don't want a ton of people.
I think it's fascinating. Some people, they bring their crew.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, all right, again, it's not me.
Yeah.
Is there, but like,
I'm like, who's paying for their hotel?
No, the person's paying. But the thing is that I sometimes wonder is, what is the value in it that I'm not seeing? So like, so I'm touring,
right?
And I have a tour manager, which I don't pay for because I'm the cheapest man on earth. And, but I mean, so invaluable. So he does the sound check. He does all this stuff. It's like he calls ahead. And so I understand that. I mean, I don't understand like having my buddy Bob, who's just there
eating chips.
Give me a pack of cigarettes, Bob. Like, I don't.
Bob's just.
But there are people. There's somebody.
Bob's just eating dip.
I don't want. It's like it's. I don't want to sound like I'm judging people. It's just, but then again, I also
No, it's a different way. Yeah.
My pack is my family.
Right.
Like I'm like, all right, I'm doing shows in Hawaii. Everyone's going. I mean, obviously it wasn't planned, but
yeah. Yeah.
But like that's expensive.
It's a ton. Yeah. All those
Getting
plane
everyone
tickets oh my God.
I mean, then again, some of the people we're talking about are doing multiple arenas in different cities.
Yes.
So they
Yes.
can afford it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's,
You know what I mean?
that's true.
I mean, I'm also...
But there's also those guys who've been doing that before they got to arenas. They just always moved in packs.
Yeah.
Right? They just like having all those people
And
around.
I guess it's like...
There was a
You're not going to get in trouble, right?
Well, I don't know. Yeah. But there was definitely... and I've done this a couple weekends now, like recently, where I was just solo.
Yeah.
There's something so present. To the point, and this sounds a little psychotic, but where I'm not talking about what do you want for breakfast, what time are we going to meet at the elevator, what time are we going to, even just that small stuff, just being backstage.
Yeah.
It's purely me and my notebook, my jokes, and the only thing I can think about is the show. It's all moving towards the show.
But aren't you obsessed also with like, all right, we ran through how we're going to do the lighting when I walk out, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there is a lot of that, like, remember when I said we were going to bring down the lights? And the guy's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so you have to do some of that.
I'm doing all of that.
You're doing all of that.
All of that. That part would be helpful. And having someone help out with, like, the book signing and that, all those little details.
Yeah.
But I'm talking just purely artistically about performing and doing the show.
Yeah.
There was something, and maybe this is just a reset, because we're coming back and touring again like that. But there's something so pure about, I don't know, it feels like a singer-songwriter out on his own in a way. Like it's just there's nothing that's going to happen from the time I leave the house until I come back on Sunday that is going to be anything but the act.
And so you would get delivery or sometimes you would go out? Because that's another thing.
I don't go out when I'm alone. I get food and the Omicron too is like, I just get takeout and bring it to the room or room service.
Yeah.
It is isolating. I don't think I could continue like this.
It's
but
one
there's
thing
something
to do it 2 days, because I do that when I do corporates.
Right.
Those are essentially really weird.
Yeah. You know what I
Really
love
weird.
when Ryan Hamilton posts him and his posse.
Yeah.
He's like at corporate gigs. It's always
really?
It's always like because there's never a green room. It's just the banquet room with one table and your rider stuff.
yeah.
And he just has his blazer over a chair.
Oh,
and he's
yeah.
like killing it. When you're just thinking, yeah.
No, those corporates are fascinating.
So when you go, your posse is your tour manager who's running the show.
Yes.
And then your opening act.
And that'll vary. That's Ted Alexandro or Todd Glass.
Right.
But mostly Ted. But like Ted now has 2 small kids, so there was the balance. And I'm sure you had to reschedule. I had to reschedule all these shows. So
yeah.
September, October, November, and December were pretty crazy. And then that's why I was like, I'm not doing much during January.
Right. Yeah. No, that was smart. It is so nice to be back out, though. The other thing I really admire about when you do go out, and your specials, they always look fun. They always look like your marketing of it, the posters that go with it, the titles of it. You seem to be really, you put some thought into all of it. It doesn't seem
I do think that with this pandemic, we just want to have fun. Like I always, and I know that you and I have discussed this. It's like when people come to a show, it's not just about hearing laughs. It's like these people, it's not just about the money. It's about it's the value of time. It's like, look, what we're selling is fun. Do you know what I mean? It's like, look, there's Bert Kreischer fun. You can have that fun. But we're going to laugh.
Yeah.
And so there is, I learned that pretty early on that it was, as much as I enjoy it, it's like people, it's doing a theater, as you know. It's like such a great setting for it. It's like we're adults here,
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not competing with chicken fingers,
Right.
and then so there is something about that night out.
Yeah.
That and a lot of us, it's like if you got kids or if you're like, I mean, half the people are switching occupations. It's like it's pretty precious, not only monetary, it's timing.
Yeah, right,
You know what I mean?
exactly. Oh, I'm always shocked that people are getting in their cars and driving and finding a parking space and coming and sitting down.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot going on there.
Crazy.
So you're not going to go Panette style. So you lost 25 pounds when you were
I was
in the
working out every
pandemic.
day.
You were working out a lot.
You got an Apple Watch. I went, I think 200 maybe 300 days straight.
Of some workout?
Hitting all my fitness goals.
Wow.
I mean, on an Apple Watch, it's like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So, which I
It's still good, though. 30 minutes is good.
But like if you're walking through an airport, you're like, did it? I don't have to work out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and
I love when the Apple Watch, because you don't walk in LA at all, and then I get to New York and my Apple Watch is like, "Zzzt, are we working out right now? Should I clock this?"
Are you having a heart attack?
I just walked 50 feet.
Yeah. Everything okay? Wait a minute, are you in a swimming pool?
But didn't you feel like you were working out? Because I started dialing it in too during that time. It was for my mental health more than it was trying to lose weight.
Yeah, and
I just felt less stressed.
Yeah, and I think also there was, COVID hit fat people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I was
You
like,
have a very funny run on that in the special.
It's like they didn't want to say it on the news, but like they're like that was the subtext, like fatties, it's you,
It's coming for you.
it's you, and we're like, how fat?
Right. Not like me fat.
And so, but like obviously,
Yeah.
Well, you know what's weird is mentally, I think comedians. Mm-hmm. I mean, we went from getting a pretty consistent dose of, I don't know, what do we call it, dopamine or whatever.
Yeah,
of
affirmation,
adrenaline.
yeah.
And then it's like, whoop.
Yeah.
So I had those CBS Sunday commentaries, and but I found it, did you write stand-up during the lockdown? Like, in 2 months. Like, there was part of me, it's like, we're probably going to die. I'm not going to waste the energy.
Yeah. No, it was hard. Yeah. Someone was talking about that. Like it's hard to create when you think your life is at stake. Like we didn't know which way it was going to go. It was hard to to sit and noodle around, but I started getting some shows up.
Oh yeah. You were doing, you were out here. So
Out
you could
here,
go outside.
yeah. You can go outside, and I had this big warehouse space my buddy Greg Grunberg had, and we did some shows there. So little things, but it wasn't like preparing. It was like,
It was just
let's
like,
get
we're getting
through
on
it.
stage.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It took a while to start writing again.
Yeah.
Because you didn't really know where you were headed.
Yeah, I did some of those drive-in shows where it was just like even people in the audience were like,
Right.
It's just like we're like,
we're having fun, right?
this
fun.
is good, right? Are we gonna die? Are we gonna die? It's just like,
Yeah, that's the whole. Well, all of life was that. It was like a version of what we used to do.
Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is it worth it? And you're like, I guess so.
I know, but I'm sitting on a curb. And it's freezing.
I'm sitting in a car. They were playing the audio of the show on the radio because some people didn't feel comfortable with having the windows down.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Flashing lights was laughter.
I'm so glad I didn't do one of those.
Yeah, I think I didn't do any of the Zoom shows. Did you do those?
I did a couple of those.
How was that?
It was weird.
You could hear the feedback though?
Well, that was it. If you could hear it, it was okay.
Yeah.
If you couldn't, it was crazy town. It was, you just needed, and it really was like, because when we started, how many shows most of our career was in front of 10 or fewer people.
Yeah.
And now it was like, so I was like, all right, we've been playing bigger shows recently, but give me 10 people. That's all I need. Just let me hear some laughs, give some rhythm. I'll have an idea. And when there was none, it was like, all right, this is, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about like those corporate shows, which I know you do. It's like, it's so weird because you hear a certain laugh, and then there might be a setting where it's like, all right, the setting's going to influence it. But like some corporate shows, they're like, they don't laugh at all. And then they're like, you're amazing. And you're like, I think I bombed. And they're like, no, you were great. We don't laugh. We just don't laugh.
Right.
And
You
you're
have
like,
no
what do you mean
idea.
You don't laugh. You're like, this is... We're in Seattle, Washington. There's no reason why you wouldn't laugh. No, we don't. We just don't laugh. And you're like, what is this a corporation of? We're the corporation of not laughing.
Right.
It's so strange.
Well, when they're all together in the work setting,
Yeah.
you know, who is funny, you know, yeah, the bar's set kind of low. When you can actually have a good one of those,
Oh, those are amazing.
those are amazing. Those
Well,
are
I
great.
call corporates, they, you know, you get paid well for them, but like they
Yeah.
can also be the opposite of writing. Like it can, you're like, well, that's not going to make it. And when, if you had done it in a show, you would have been like, there would have been some sprout of life out of it.
Right.
You're like, nope, done with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was so great. You have to take the bread home.
Oh yes, definitely.
You can take the donuts too.
No, I can't.
You can. You have a several.
Feel this, it's still warm.
Yeah.
So is it, so it's still kind of doing like the yeast stuff
Yeah,
in there?
this is why this bread is healthier than you'll have in like the market. Right now it's still baking itself and it's still breaking down the sugars that are in the bread. So it's not going to be like when people say like, you know, bread is the biggest evil. Depends what you have.
Yeah,
in it.
Rogan was telling me about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I know it's true.
Yeah.
So how often? I know you enjoy making these.
Yeah. And I
How often do you eat it?
all the time.
All the time. And you will eat it with what? Butter, olive oil?
Most of the time, before I do the radio show in the morning, I'll have coffee and then I'll have a piece of toast with butter on it. Wow. That's like the simple, really nice version of it. Yeah. Butter. I should have brought you butter.
No, I'll get some from room service. I'm just gonna be like, oh.
Yeah, just tear it. You're not gonna have a great knife there.
No,
You're not
I think
have a
I'm
good
gonna bring
syringe.
it home.
You can just do it with your hands. It'll stay
Break
for a
bread.
while. It'll stay for a
Like
bit.
Jesus, this is like he broke this bread.
Comedy monster.
Comedy monster.
You are a comedy monster.
Oh well, thanks, buddy. You are too.
It was this was really nice.
So sometimes you do the booze.
Once in a while, we'll crack open the wine. It really changes the day.
And how do you drive home after that?
I don't.
You'll do an Uber.
I'll just sleep here.
What?
I'll just lay down and then they
What
wake
set
me up.
is that one over there?
I don't know.
There's all these different sets. You're like, I'd like this to look. Was the design for this set? It's like, I'd like it to look like a restaurant that went out of business. Jim, don't
A pandemic restaurant.
don't criticize my set, you jerk.
The way you say it, it actually is. This is what you'd see on the street in New York right
Like,
now.
what is? Are there supposed to be things in here or no?
We thought about putting up some like headshots and things.
Or you could put like, I think it should be. I think you should go. I think this should be an Italian restaurant. I
Yeah.
think it should be the Red Checker. Jim, it's not your show. It should be the Red, and then this should be like scenes of Italy.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
All right. Will you come back then?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Good.
And then there is like, yeah. Then you know, because it is capturing that chat you have in a restaurant.
Right. That's what I wanted it to be. I'm not sure. People don't like you chewing on the mic so much. That's why donuts are good because they're nice and soft.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like maybe we sit down, start eating first.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because you don't want to hear the.
Yeah, people get angry. So so maybe we eat a little first and then get into it. It's a work in progress. But we started the whole thing where it was just going to be this, and it quickly went to you can't be around human beings for a year. So it got a little thrown. But I was really psyched that you were able to come and sit at the table.
This is great.
You're the best. All right, kids, that's the big show. Great conversation. Love Jim. Go check out his special, Comedy Monster. And then when you go to work and have to do something, just turn it on again and let it play. So everybody at Netflix knows that you really love Comedy Monster. A big thank you to Jim, and Aaron here at the podcast wants to thank Jim as well, because he left behind a good amount of donuts, and they're going to Aaron's house. All right, kids, enjoy. We'll see you next week.